What is this?
I think that it's.
I think it's a good option there.
I think it's fucking. I like IDUBBBZ. He's a good guy, but I don't like this sweet stupid.
For those of you who don't know what Content Cop is, this is IDUBBBZ's old show that he did at a time when I think people cared about YouTubers doing evil I don't think people care as much anymore. Like, I think most people are just like, yeah, this guy sucks. Okay, whatever. Like, there's a lot that has taken place in terms of call-out culture online that I think is very interesting. Where Drama Slop Tuber's based.
He absolutely, I think it just broke him. And I mean, Sam Hyde's like super ultra right, so maybe it's just, I don't know. I'm like Sam Hyde now, apparently. It's not a fucking petty beef. It's like, this guy is evil and he's doing anti-Semitism. And also he's way out of my weight class.
That's true. Got way bigger.
It's not even a good joke.
I hate to say it, but the hand differential is...
I mean, just in proportion, he's taller than me. Dan. It's just a proportionality thing.
Right. That's all.
Drop it while it's hot, they say. If it wasn't clearly evident, we're living under a recession of sorts worldwide, and in case you didn't hear already, a new IDUBBBZ content cap just dropped on H3. And while I agree with the majority of the video about H3, it's nothing much to drive home by, at least not in my opinion. It somehow built like a whole high school reunion in the comment section, but I think it kind of pales in comparison at this moment compared to previous content cup videos from IDUBBBZ. It's agreeable still in the sense that H3 is a hypocrite and a rich asshole, but that's not the main point I want to drive home by. You see, me and IDUBBBZ are not that much different, he and I. We both share the same edge cis face at some point back in the glory days of the content cut videos, and we both did some morally reprehensible shit. But I think the main point I want to talk about is how we were conceived in our YouTube careers as a force of sorts, lesser or greater that is, that publicly denounce a similar threat on the internet and maybe even our geopolitics as well. Malicious narcissists. I've been at least trying to hunt down malicious internet narcissists for sport, and yes, even in my alt-right days I did. But I think the internal self-growth that I partook once I escaped the alt-right led me to a different approach on hunting down malicious internet narcissists. Maybe other sorts of malicious narcissists as well. I think it's especially considerable that IDUBBBZ in part inspired me to pursue a similar goal of contesting unchecked, unfair, and uncontested online and offline power of sorts. But I think this is especially recording that a lot of the inspiration that is just drawn from this Content Cup series, which coincidentally is a nice recession indicator. Funnily enough, and just to show you it's no joke what I'm saying, the year that was right for Content Cup 2016 just has so happened to thrive under the times of another recession, the 2015-2016 stock market sell-off, which coincided with the beginning of Trump's first term, and you can already notice how this bled off into current geopolitical circumstances. Ever since the previous Content Cup on Rascom and until the H3 Content Cup, there were basically 3 major recessions at most, a global pandemic, a high-scale war in Eastern Europe between Ukraine and Russia, Trump winning twice the US election, and the rise and decline of the far right. I think it's clearly evident who's responsible for these major catastrophes. A bunch of malignant narcissists who have billions of dollars in their bank. That's how they are. You see, when for too long evil, narcissistic, and dumb power goes unchecked and succeed, they eventually will surround themselves with even the most fervent of yes men to agree with literally everything they say and deep throat them until the end of days. Case in point, people like Donald Trump or Elon Musk have been building myths surrounding their so-called success, when in reality that's just unchecked privilege of being born rich. The eventual fallout they face, however, especially in the recent year, is when the consequences of their dumb actions start to make them reap what they sow, causing things like a global recession that makes a lot of working class people lose money and by extension make them really unhappy and angry. And when someone is unhappy or angry at someone, they might start looking away from the distractions that particular someone makes and look beneath their mask. The whole mythology behind Trump and Musk can't crumble away as soon as both destroyed the trust from even the most loyal of their voter bases and fans. People started seeing beyond the facade of their PR and public image to see a real ugly beast, capable of lying to get anywhere they want, and so the civil unrest is clearly evident from here. The far right, especially the Trumpian one and Muskian one, started losing serious reputation in freefall to a point where it is irreparable. The problem with this is that fascists like Trump or Musk might be all evil you can possibly imagine, but deep down they're dumb narcissists who don't know what they're doing. Their ideology is rooted in a certain lack of critical thinking and common sense, so much so that reality somehow has to bend to their version of their truth. Narcissists like that operate like constant woe is me babies who always need either make it about themselves being the center of immutable reality, or either need an eternal enemy to fight against, who's always depicted in a hyperbolic manner. Okay, but what does this have to do with internet narcissists or content creators, or even H3 for that matter? I'm glad you asked. H3 might have built a whole mythology after fighting off things like a lawsuit from some parkour cringe lord and being the representative of the common ground YouTube user. And granted, that was big, but as soon as Ethan Klein and Hila started reaping the further riches from that reputation alone, a certain pattern inherent with the abundance of wealth started to appear in Ethan and Hila's personality. Yes, shocking, I know, money corrupts anyone who owns it, sure, but not everybody, you see. H3 was lucky enough to win the YouTube lottery, which kinda crazy to think, I know, but still it's kinda being born in a rich South African apartheid family with an emerald mine business. When you think about it a tiny bit, it's like being crowned king by God himself. H3's downfall into this downward spiral is clearly evident, and I might have guessed you didn't need IDUBBBZ to tell you about it. Ethan Klein has indulged himself into this narcissistic and unethical parade, especially with his personal internet slap fights with people like Hassan Piker or Keemstar. And that while it's agreeable that most of these are just internet slap fights between two obnoxiously rich people, there's patterns on those who are lucky enough, and I mean really lucky, to instantly access a huge heap of money and power over even a platform like YouTube. Look for instance at the typical victims of IDUBBBZ content cop, people like Rascam, Leafy, or even Jinx Reloaded. You know who these people are. They gloat over their virtual riches, surround themselves with hordes of brainless fans who they will exploit parasocial relationships with, and are mostly assholes. You see this clearly everywhere, even with more popular figures like Mr. Beast or PewDiePie, the latter driving people previously into an alt-right beauty pipeline, and the former just being a rich asshole who exploits the hopes and dreams of gullible poor people, money, incompetence. You see where I'm going? Do I draw you a crocus? Even then you can start seeing the parallels with a certain Trump and Musk as well. I wonder why. And it's evident at this point that a lot of these famous and rich people face scrutiny for their actions, backlash, and a lot of anger from the common ground people who start breaking down the collapsing mask of PR and public image, or even mythology, and start seeing the ugly reality behind them. In any case, it's a tale as old as capitalism itself, a system that rewards such bad actors exploiting the little guy himself for personal gain and harms the little guy as well. It's not just the money itself, because let's face it, if it was, we will abolish money entirely, but it's a system that uses that money as a weapon to perpetuate this system alone. A lot of these public figures are, as well as evil, pretty dumb narcissists, egocentric morons who only look for the short-term gains, and a lot of people are angry about it, justifiably so. When the bread and circus collapses on itself or even disappears, people will start getting angry, and with the recession that Trump and Musk caused, they eventually harm the thing that is the most sacred of them all: gamers. You see what I mean with this increase of prices of games like Mario Kart? You only took a bunch of really stupid tariffs everywhere from Orange Cheeto Man to piss off a huge subset of the MAGA audience enough to turn against him. And this will be reflected as a parallel as well on other public figures as well, including YouTubers or content creators. Look, I know this is hard to believe, but no one is your friend. Trust me, not even myself. I am not your friend. I'd rather prefer my already existing few friends and mutuals. Thank you. It's way better to have one beloved Connie than to have 1,000 bisexual relationships with different kinds of Connies. Trust me, if I come down to the same unethical conundrums that a lot of these people exploiting bisexual relationships for self-gain do, please, kill me. No, seriously, shoot me. I'll eventually know that I did something wrong, and you can trust me on that. But if this shows anything, is that certain people like H3, who again don't have the greatest background in the past, will rise to the top no matter what they do to achieve so. And they'll again surround themselves with yes people who agree with them on everything and shut down any dissent their way. Kinda like what Trump or Musk do at this point. So, what can we do about this? Well, I'm sorry to have to agree with $1 million extreme sketch from Sam Hyde's World Peace Season 1, but we really have to bully these people. Early and often.
Early and often.
You see, what the right kind of bullying to fascistic, narcissistic assholes can do is sniff out the trouble, or the stupid that can be avoidable given that it is contested right on time. And this doesn't mean go to harass a person until they become somehow less of a narcissistic, egocentric asshole, but it means fighting off their troublemaking by especially pointing their evil before it's too late. Gabe Newell at some point in his life put it best: if you're caught lying on the internet, you'll be caught eventually. No matter what you do, if you do something morally reprehensible at one point, you'll find out eventually. Fuck around and find out. At the end of the day, we need more content cops like IDUBBBZ or so weeding out the malicious internet narcissists who go with unchecked, uncontested power on platforms and even politics or society, because, and look at me in the eye while I'm saying it, it is pretty much getting out of hand, and it's really fucking stupid.